In March of 2003, an attacker entered a mosque here in Peshawar, northern Pakistan. Several minutes later, he detonated an explosive vest, killing 63 people. The bomb was detonated here in Kucha Razaldar, a neighbourhood of Peshawar that is occupied predominantly by people belonging to a sect of Islam named Shia. Pakistan as a whole, however, is about 90% Sunni. The assailant belonged to an offshoot of ISIS. The reason for the attack, however, runs much deeper than just terrorist violence. This is just one example of many acts of intersect violence across the Middle East between the two main strands of Islam.
Before I got into geopolitics and started this channel, I fell into a trap that I think many in the West do, of understanding this part of the world as culturally and religiously falling under the umbrella term of Islamic. But the thing is that to do that is a drastic oversimplification, perhaps even more so than it would be to lump the West together under the word Christian. Much like Christianity, Islam is divided into two large sects, Sunni and Shiite, which in turn contain many smaller subdivisions. The splitting of these two groups is the fault line that runs through much of the Middle East and the cause for many of the tensions that we see today, and it goes all the way back to the death of Muhammad in 632 CE. When Muhammad died, his followers were split over how to best choose his successor. The Sunnis wanted his successor to be chosen by his followers, known as a caliph, and proposed his companion and father-in-law, Abu Bakr. The Shias, however, wanted the leadership of Islam to remain within Muhammad's bloodline, known as an imam, and proposed Ali ibn Abi Talib, Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law. The Sunnis belonged to the much larger group and got their way, and Abu Bakr was put in place as the first caliph. The Sunnis then went on to choose the next two caliphs. The Shias, however, kept pushing for Muhammad's cousin, and in 656 they succeeded in electing him as the fourth caliph. In 661, Ali ibn Abi Talib was assassinated. His sons Hassan and Hussein were denied accession, with another Sunni being elected as the fifth caliph. In 681, Hussein led a group of soldiers from Mecca to Karbala to confront the Sunnis about his accession, but in the ensuing battle he was killed and decapitated. The Sunnis thought that this would be the end of the Shias' claims over the leadership of Islam, but it had the opposite effect. It strengthened them. The murder of Hussein forms a major day in the Shia calendar called Ashura that is still commemorated to this day. Throughout history, there has been a degree of peace between these two groups, but these divisions still remain, and in recent years they've begun to flare up again. In the world, there are 1.6 billion Muslims. Estimates vary depending on the source, but it's estimated that roughly 85% are Sunni and the remaining 15% are Shiite. Most countries on the planet with an Islamic population are predominantly Sunni, excluding these 5 which have Shia majorities of varying degrees. The Sunni-Shia divide has played a fundamental role in the alliances that shape this region and been the cause of numerous conflicts. We won't have time to cover all of them today, so I'm going to tell you about the 2 that I found most interesting and are currently the most relevant. Iraq is somewhat evenly split in its numbers of Sunnis versus Shiites, with roughly 60% of the population being Shiite and 40% being Sunni. Since 1979, Iraq had been ruled by the dictator Saddam Hussein. Hussein belonged to the Sunni minority and used his position of power to suppress the Shiite majority. In 2003, the US invaded Iraq because of its alleged connection to terrorism and harboring weapons of mass destruction. Hussein was quickly captured and overthrown, and in his place a Shiite government took over. They then began suppressing the minority Sunni population, because clearly oppression always works out best for everybody. This caused escalating violence which peaked with the civil war in 2006, which led to Iraq becoming essentially geographically segregated by religion. Individuals from the suppressed Sunni part of the population went on to form the seeds of what later became ISIS. We'll be coming back to them later. So that's Iraq, but over in Syria it's almost the reverse picture, with 74% of the population being Sunni. Despite the high majority Sunni population, they've been suppressed for the last 45 years by their dictator Bashar al-Assad. Assad belongs to an offshoot of Shia known as the Alawites. In the early 2010s, there was a series of protests known as the Arab Spring, where much of the Arab world decisively called for democratic reforms. These protests led to governmental changes in Egypt, Tunisia, and Libya. In Syria, the people hoped that they may have their own democratic revolution. Assad, however, would not prove as easy to remove from power. In 2011, the population held largely peaceful protests as part of the movement.
The scenes are unprecedented. Syrians now demanding what Tunisians and Egyptians have just won.
But then Assad struck back hard, deploying chemical weapons against his own people. After this, rebel groups quickly started forming in the country as they struggled to liberate themselves from Assad's rule. In the midst of all of this fighting, ISIS, who are Sunni, started to make their way across the border into Syria and carve out territory for their new Islamic caliphate. At their largest, they covered vast swathes of Iraq and Syria, and even had offshoots in Nigeria and Libya. ISIS was subsequently defeated in 2017, but the civil war in Syria rages on to this day, and Assad still holds his position of power. Okay, so as you can tell, there's a lot of players and motivations here. So many, in fact, that it makes Game of Thrones look simple. To be honest, a lot of the West's armed forces that have been deployed in these areas didn't understand all of these divisions themselves, and that has exacerbated a great number of the issues that we've seen. I hope that I've been able to help you understand the lay of the land and the causes of the divisions that exist here. I've only had time in today's video to cover 2 of the conflicts, but there are many, many more going on throughout the region. If it's something that interests people, then I'd love to do a follow-up looking at other areas of the Sunni-Shia conflict, so let me know in the comments if there's anywhere in particular that you want me to take a look at.